This is AndyTube. This video is part 2 of a Singer Model 466 gear swap or gear replacement. If you saw part 1, I showed how to remove all the covers of the machine in preparation, except I forgot one cover. I missed one cover, and that's the arm side cover. We did the arm cover end, bottom, nose, bobbin plate, so forth. But there's a little cover here, access cover. And according to Singer, it was designed to get access to remove the cam stack. But you can get access to the gear from there also. Very similar to the Model 457 gear change video I did. So I've loosened these screws now. I'm going to completely remove one, and then we can slide this plate off the other one and remove it. Okay. And let me show you here. You can see perhaps. I don't know. Let's see here. I'm hoping we can go in there and see the gear back down there. See if I can get a light on the top of it there. There we go. As you can see the round cylindrical gear back in there. So that's a pretty big opening really to get a screwdriver in there. But there's another way too here. Since we had to take off the panel and the dial, there's a little space right here for a narrow screwdriver. Okay, and if we come over here and look, I think we can see in there. I think you can see the gear and set screw sitting in there. And that's actually the access space that I'm going to use to remove the gear. I can see through this area also, right here, into the gear. And I can see that the existing set screw takes a standard straight blade screwdriver. It does not use an Allen key or hex key. And I like the idea of going here because I can kind of support this called a cabinet screwdriver. I can kind of support it here and help hold it steady while I try to remove that set screw. Some of those set screws can really be in there. And that gear base, the metal base, gets really hot as it spins around on top of the bushing. This oil port is to put oil into the bushing to lubricate the shaft. Okay? But it really doesn't lubricate the metal base of the gear and the top of the bushing. So it gets pretty hot, and that set screw can get baked in there. And if people have mistakenly put some kind of grease or oil on those gears, that gets dry and hard and leaks into the shaft and around that set screw, and it can be kind of hard. So that's what I'm going to attempt, is to go through here to get to that set screw. Okay. Then it's going to come out, the gear's going to come out pretty easily once it's loose on the shaft and the shaft is lowered. There's quite a bit of room up here to wiggle around. Now the gear might fall and it could pachinko all the way down and even come out the bottom, maybe. We'll see. But we want to get in here and get that gear loose. Now, I can't tell you on my other gear video how many comments and a few emails I had from people. They got the set screw loose or even removed it, but they could not get that old gear off of the shaft. It was just like welded on there. So I'm going to suggest something to you that you may find useful, and that's going to be to turn the machine upside down and put some WD-40 or other penetrating type of oil right where the shaft goes in to the bottom of that bushing. And with the machine upside down, it can slowly leak in there and help soften, kind of melt, but soften any old, hard, impacted, dried up oil in there. Then that should aid in getting that old gear off of the shaft. Okay, so let me flip this machine over and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, what we're seeing here is the drive pulley that's attached to the bottom of that vertical shaft, and you can see the shaft itself right in the center there. Okay, and of course that has the timing belt that goes over to the hook pulley that turns the hook shaft and rotates the hook. Okay, so what I'm talking about is right down in there. You can look and you can see that shaft going right down and in to the base of the bushing. And that's where I'm suggesting, I can try and show that. I don't know if you'll be able to see it down in there. No, not really. But if you follow the shaft, you will see it. And what I usually do is take some penetrating oil with a straw, and I'll work it down in there and just do a 2 or 3 psh, psh, psh. If you can't get all the way down in there with what you're using, you can try and get it here on the shaft and start applying it there and let it run down the shaft. Okay? But I would suggest that because often it's difficult to get the gear off of the top of this shaft. Okay? And once you loosen the screw on the gear, you can't lift the gear up because the arm shaft blocks it, and I'll show you. So what we're going to do is be pulling on this down to remove it out of the gear, and then move the gear out sideways and up and out of the machine. And I'm going to show you how to remove the belt and stuff, but I've got some pictures with some of this removed and some pictures of what I'm talking about here. So I'll let you look at the little slideshow of those while I position the machine again. Okay, hopefully that'll help you to recognize what you're seeing down there. Now you don't have to do that penetrating oil thing if you don't want, or you can do it if you can't. If you get the set screw out and you can't get the gear off, or you can't pull the shaft down, then you could use the penetrating gear if you want. So when the gear's off, we have to pull this down about this far to get it out from the gear. And I usually, at the minimum, I'm going to remove this belt tensioner. these parts here are how you set the proper tension to the timing belt. You don't want it too loose, flapping around, coming off. You don't want it too tight, or it binds the motor. You know, it makes it too hard to turn. So it's just one screw, and it comes out. And I guess it's 5 pieces. We have the screw that attaches it to the hole. Let me get a container over here. And we have the 2 end plates, okay, with the hole through the center. And then we have a nylon bushing that the belt is going to slide over, and then it goes over this, and you see that the hole is way off center, and that's so that when it's screwed on, you can turn it up and turn it down to put more or less tension on the belt. Right? Okay. Now, depending on your machine, with this out of the tensioner, you may have enough slack to pull this down when you're taking the gear off. Right? Okay. You may not have to take the belt off. I'm going to take the belt off because when I have the old gear off, I'm going to pull this shaft out and show it to you. So maybe you've never seen a vertical shaft, you know, and you might like to see it, and I have to explain about the flat spot for the set screw on there. So I'm just going to slip the belt off here. Let's see, how can I do this? We'll start turning it up on this edge. The edge is kind of sharp, so don't force anything, but help lift it up on that edge and turn the drive pulley and see if we can't get it to slip right off there. By the same thing, when you put it back on, get it in between the plates on the pulley, and you're going to turn it the other way, right? Or put it on the bottom and turn it up. There's a cog drive belt. If you've never had a close look at it, this one's in very good condition. It's very supple. Stress it like that and look close. There's no cracks, no fraying. Very clean. Okay, so if you decide that you want to take this pulley off for some reason, the set screws are on the back side here. Okay, there's a set screw back there, and it takes a 3/32 Allen wrench or hex or Allen key or hex key. Nowadays more people call them hex key. And you loosen that set screw to take the pulley off. I'm not going to do that. I don't think I have a need for that. So let's go ahead and see if we can get the gear loose, the set screw loose, and get the gear out of the machine. Alright. Alright. So, yeah, I turned that. So, let's see, I'm going to move this lever to the side. I can get my finger on the gear base, and I want to point the set screw right here because I'm going in this way. If you like better, just point it so your screwdriver can go in right there. Okay, if that's more comfortable for you. So I'm just going to point it this way. And then let's see, what was, oh, there's up here. See this little thing? It's right above the other gear, and the gear we're removing is down there. So I'm going to move this width lever all the way to the right. See how it moved all that out of the way? So now I can get access to both sides of the gear. Alright. And if you have a flashlight or something that you want to put in there to help yourself see, so that you can get to that set screw. I'll show you a couple pictures here. Okay, so you see what I'm doing, right? So I'm just going to go in and put this screwdriver in the set screw, and you want to, the trick with this is if you're applying pressure, that shaft wants to spin, right? So sometimes you're going to have to hang the machine off the end of your workbench and hold that pulley in one hand, you know, and then use your screwdriver with the other hand. So you stabilize that shaft by holding the pulley. And let's see if we can get in here and, oh yeah, it's pretty tight. There we go. That was it. Okay. Did you hear that thump? That thump was the shaft falling down because that gear wasn't holding it up. So last night when I put that WD-40 onto the bottom of the bushing, it must have done its job, because as soon as I loosened that set screw, you could hear the shaft and the pulley just go boop, right? So that was easy. So let me set up here, and I'll show you what's going on up the top. Okay. Okay. So stick my finger in here. See if you can see that. There's the gear sitting at the end of my fingertip on top of the bushing, and a little bit of the shaft is still sticking up. So for me, what I found to be the best way, if I can find it, oh no, I thought I had everything all laid out here. You may be able to knock the gear off and have it fall and shake it around and fall out the bottom. What I found useful is one of these little, I just call it a magnet stick. It's just got a small magnet on the end, and it telescopes around, you know, longer and shorter. But I want to try and stick that on there, and then I'm just going to elevate the machine a little more. Since my shaft is already loose, I'm not going to have to go down and pull it off the gear. If I just raise the machine about a ½ inch more, I'm going to be able to lower that shaft a little bit more. The shaft will fall. There it goes. And then I should be able to wiggle that gear right up and out. There it is. What's left of it. What a shame, huh? Look at this heavy metal base. I mean, it's a nice solid metal base, and then they press this little plastic gear teeth ring on top of it. Phew. Instead of just putting a steel gear up there or something. I don't know how much they saved. 10 cents a machine back then? I don't know. Anyway, Now I want to show you some pictures. I'll take some pictures here and then I'll show them real quick. I want to show how the shaft looks coming up out of the bushing at about the height when the gear would be sitting on it. And then I'll take the shaft out and I'll just show you the top of the bushing sitting there so you get to see what that looks like. Okay, now you've seen the top bushing of the vertical shaft. Alright, so now with that gear off, if you want to, you don't have to, but you need to kind of lower it to get it out of the center of that gear up there, right? You need to lower it enough so that you can pull that gear out. When we put the new one in, I've got to align the new gear hole with the top of that shaft, and then you know, get the shaft up in the gear. And then I have to turn the gear to one of the access points and hold this up into the gear while I tighten the set screw on the gear. Alright. Okay, so I just thought I would show you this, and then I want to show you the flat spot. So now this is all dry and everything, even, man, it's very dry, yeah. But we'll just pull it out here, and of course you don't want to bend anything, right? So there is the shaft. There's the vertical shaft. Now if we come up here, we will see, oh, that's showing up good, isn't it? You'll see this big old flat spot right there. And the length of the flat spot is larger than the diameter of the set screw, so there's some minor room for adjusting the mesh of the gear here to the gear on the horizontal arm. So where's my old gear? So when these gears go on, the set screw has to line up right with that flat spot. Okay, and then when it's tightened, that's so that it doesn't get loose and just spin around the shaft, right? See if I can tighten this up a little bit here. I'm going to tighten it enough so that the set screw goes into that flat spot a little bit, but I can still move the, there we go, I can still slide it around. That's what I meant, was that you can adjust this a little bit up and down on that flat spot, but it won't rotate. Then when you have the bottom pushed up and the gear pushed down just enough to mesh, then you tighten this permanently. Okay, and then oops, see, I got to take that off now. The problem is when it's in the machine and the gear base is sitting on the shaft, how do you know you're getting it exactly on the flat spot, right? What if you twisted it a little? And believe me, you don't want to tighten the screw on any of the round part. No, no, no. Nope. Don't let all your hard work go to waste. So we've got to be the great manipulators, and we have to be sure that we get the set screw onto the flat spot. Okay, and the way to do that is by looking up here at the end of the shaft. Now let's see if I can get it in the light here. And I think you can see that. You see this little notch out of the top? There's a little like 16-inch notch they ground off of the end of the shaft. That little flat ground down notch is right above this flat spot on the shaft. So even when your new gear is sitting on there and you can't see this, you'll be able to see that little flat spot up there, so that when you have your screwdriver in there and you're moving it around trying to find that flat spot, you're going to see that flat spot right there on the end. And that's where you line up your set screw and screwdriver and tighten it. Okay? And there's there's the little set screw on the drive pulley, and you see I don't have it too tight, but you can see right there's the flat spot on the bottom, and that's where this pulley has to go back on, so there's no spinning. Now on the hook pulley there's two set screws like this, and there is no flat spot, so they have to use two set screws to make sure it doesn't slip on the shaft. And that's because after you do this, you have to reset the needle to hook timing, and you do that by hooking everything else up, loosening these, getting the needle point at a certain height, and then turning the hook itself to line up, and then tightening those back. So when you see one set screw, that usually means there's a flat spot. And if you see two set screws, not opposite each other, but like in an angle, I don't know what degree that is. Is that 90? I guess it is 90. If you see two of them at a 90-degree angle, that usually means there's no flat spot. Okay? Okay. And so I'm going to put this back in to get ready to, oops, I better tighten that back up, huh? I'll tighten this back up on the flat spot and put it back in, and then we'll go up and put the gear on. And we've been talking a lot about the new gear, so here it is. This is a genuine Singer 155819 vertical shaft top gear. What a thing of beauty, huh? And I'll caution you right now, before you put your new gear in, you want to be sure that the metal base of the new gear is the same as the old gear. Okay? Because I've had a lot of feedback from my viewers that some sellers are selling a gear that they say is this gear, but the metal base is longer. And you can get it to work and get it up in there, but when you tighten everything up, it puts way too much pressure on the two gears, and it binds it, and then the machine runs poor and loud and lousy. So you don't want that. So before you put your new gear in, you want to, compare it in height. People who found that said that they ground down the gear that was too tall, or they got sandpaper and sanded it down until it was the height of the old gear. But here's a picture of the two gears side by side so that you can see this one is the right height. Okay, and in the description below I'll put a link to where I bought this. A seller I've used a long time, and I don't know, this was $1 or $2 more than some of the other gears for sale, but I trust him. He says it's a genuine Singer. It's got the part number right on it. Even the base with this ring around there is the same as the old. So I'm very happy with it and his service and stuff. I don't get any compensation from him, but I like to support good, honest sellers. So you might want to buy from him or anybody that you choose. You know, you may not have access to eBay in the United States. I think he's on Amazon now too. But just watch out, whose ever gear you buy, about that height thing, okay? Alright, so tighten this up, get the shaft back in and set up to put in the new gear. I'll be darned, I gotta correct myself here. This is one of the rare ones I've seen, but there's 2 set screws on the bottom here. There's 2 set screws and there's 1 flat spot, and it's also marked by the flat spot on the end. So one of these 2 set screws has to be lined up with that flat spot. They put 2 on this with the flat spot because it's the drive gear. You know, it's the drive shaft and pulley and stuff. So I'm interested now to take a look at this when we get there to see if there's 2 flat spots. I don't think so, because this has to be rotated to set the timing, so the flat spot wouldn't pertain. Anyway, I'm going to put this back in here and set up, and we're going to go about manipulating that new gear onto the top of that shaft, hopefully. Manipulation. Okay, so I have the shaft pushed up through and just shy of the top of the bushing, a little bit below the top of this upper bushing. And you can see I've set the back end of the machine up on, in my case, a block. You can use a book or whatever, because you're going to eventually have to get your hand in here and push the shaft up all the way once you get the gear lined up. Okay? And I've just used some folded towels and stuff to keep the shaft a little bit below the top of the bushing. And I've done my best to turn the flat spot towards my access point, but I can manipulate that later if I need to. And then I've done something that may surprise some of you. I took the Allen key set screw out of my new gear and took the screwdriver type set screw from the old gear and put it in the new gear. I just prefer that because my Allen keys are a pretty tight fit to get through here and reach. Now if you have a longer, these are the short type, if you have a longer type you can do that. And I also have, I have some Allen key screwdriver type inserts that I could go in from over here and do. But with the manipulation and stuff, it's just a little bit easier for me to come in like this and use my right hand and for the screwdriver and stuff. So that's my plan, man. Okay, now we're going to see how good of a manipulator you can be. First we've got to get this gear. Oh, and you don't want the set screw to protrude into this hole at all. Not one bit, because it definitely will block the shaft from coming up or the gear from going down. So I'm going to stick my finger through there. Hi. And I'm going to set the gear on it, and then this index finger, and I'm going to try and get that gear, ouch, kind of a tight fit. I'm going to try and get that gear over on top of the bushing. Now it's not going to go perfect because the gear teeth, the gears aren't meshed together. But once I have it safely on top there, I can feel the set screw with my left fingertip, so I'm just going to try and point it a little towards the opening. It's not going to really work because here's what I have to do is I have to gently turn the hand wheel to mesh the gears and kind of position that gear over the shaft hole. And the way I do that was, remember that picture of the bushing I showed you? Well, the bushing, what's that, circumference is larger than the gear circumference. So I try and see that the gear is spaced evenly on the bushing. And it's not a perfect science. I put a flashlight in there and I can see that I'm way off. So I'll poke around with my finger a little bit to try and help me get it close. And then I'm going to try and pinch the top of that gear to kind of keep it in place, okay? Just for now. And then I'm going to tilt back my camera tripod. I'm going to tilt this back a little so I can get my fingers under that pulley. And then oh, look at that. Do you hear that? That means I got the pulley all the way in, the shaft and pulley. That's the back of the pulley hitting on the bottom bushing. So if I look in there now, you probably won't see it, but if I look in there, I can see my new gear and the shaft right up sticking out of the top. Okay, that was easy. So now I'm going to hold that pulley up and I'm going to turn the hand wheel and make sure that I can see my new gears meshed and turning with it. And it is. So that's great. All I got to do now is line up the flat spot of the shaft with the set screw of the gear and hold the pulley up while I tighten that set screw. So again, this is where your flashlight's going to come in handy to try and see. Should have put my glasses on. I'm rotating that shaft with my fingertips. Now I see the flat spot and I've kind of got it pointed this way. Okay, now, but my set screw isn't anywhere near after all that. So let's see if I can, like that. Well, actually, I'm going to turn the hand wheel now that they're meshed. Duh. I'm going to turn the hand wheel either which way. Still don't see it. Still don't see it. Should have gone the other way, huh? Still don't see the set screw. Come on, you. I put the set screw in there, right? There it is. Okay. So I've got the set screw lined up with the flat spot and they both appear to be this way. So wish I hadn't given my other lighting away. See if I can find the set screw with the screwdriver. Push up the shaft all the way, and I can feel it tightening up. Before I tighten too much, I'm going to see if I still think I'm lined up, because it's easy if you miss that flat spot. The screw will go off to the round part. I think I'm pretty good. Still holding the pulley up and stuff. Now I'm just going to turn this. Now the pulley is turning on my fingertips, right? Because I'm meshed, right? Oh, it looks good. Okay, darn it, now I got to get the screwdriver back, the set screw back. Looks pretty good. And see if I can find that set screw again with the tip of my screwdriver. Manipulation. There it is. Now, everything being lined up, I'm going to give it a little bit more of a turn. Ta-da. Now I can let go of the pulley, and I'm going to pull this stuff out, and I'm going to grab the pulley like this and go like that, and I don't want to hear much, if any, noise. Good. But now I also want to go ahead and turn this. Boy, that shaft is dry, isn't it? I think that's the dry shaft. It feels like it's turning easily, like it's moving freely, and it's turning smoothly, like it doesn't have what I call a soft spot, like I didn't get the mesh right and it skips a tooth or two, you know. Okay, so far so good. Now I want to run the motor, right? I want to do that, but I want to run the motor gently to see what the motor thinks of pushing all that stuff around. So I'm going to take out my block and set the machine flat, and you know, this dried old thing, I'm just going to put a little bit of oil in there. I'm just going to go to the oil port right there, put a couple drops, this is for the rear bushing, put a couple drops. I'm going to come in here, this is for the, whoops, I better show you. Okay, this, watch how far this goes in. Whee! It's got to get way back there to that upper bushing, right? And I'm going to squirt some oil in there, and then let's see, maybe I can lower this camera now a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and do this lower. Goes in like that at an angle. Going to do the lower bushing of that shaft, just to get a little, you know. There we go. Sounds nice. Let me grab my power cord and foot pedal, and we'll give it a test run here. Okay, I was hoping you could see the new gear down in there, but you will, you can peek through the window a little bit there. There it is. You'll see it with your own eyeballs, because you're a master manipulator and you got it in place now. So let me turn the switch on, and I'm just going to run it real slow at first. Make sure it doesn't bind or run smooth. It looks good. The new gear is turning very smooth. It's not wobbly or anything. And if you try and hold the speed steady, you can a lot of times tell by sound if it's binding, because it'll like that. And if you hear backlash, that if you didn't keep your shaft all the way up in there to the pulley when you tightened everything, and you got some backlash, you'll hear that shaft kind of bouncing up and down and knocking. And I don't have either one of those, so let's go ahead and sounds bad to you, right? It sounds really good to me, because I know the rubber feet on this machine is gone, and I looked, and the what do you call it, the worm gear on the shaft for the camp stack is as dry as a bone, man. But I'm convinced that that gear is perfect. Congratulations. See? You did it. I knew you could. So, it's going to end part 2 here. Kind of dragging on like a lot of my videos do, but what has to be done now is the timing belt reinstalled and the hook and needle point retimed. So that's going to be in part 3. Now, if you just can't wait, in the description below the video, by where I put the place I bought the gear from, I'm going to put a link to a timing video of a 413, which has the same kind of setup as this. So you could watch that video and you could put your belt on and retime the machine, and you'll be all set. Okay? So, and I'll put a link to that. I can put a link to that right on the end of this video, on that like final page. I can put a link to the timing video. So I don't blame you if you want to jump ahead of me and do that. But that is removing the old broken off gear and putting in a pretty shiny new beautiful gear. Yay! Hope you come back for part 3. Thanks a lot, and take care of yourself, okay? Summer's here.